Welcome back to Product Bakar, the podcast where we talk all things product management without the fluff or the frameworks that give you a headache. I'm your host Rishi, and today we are diving into something that doesn't always get the spotlight, but it should. And the topic is trust. Because in product management, trust isn't just about good design or shipping feature fast. Trust today is built on privacy, security, and yes, even how you use AI. Here's the deal: AI thrives on data. The more you collect, the smarter it gets. But the same data that powers recommendations or chatbots can also become your biggest liability if you're not careful. So let me just ask you this. Are you confident about your product isn't leaking the user data somewhere? Have you ever pushed the feature or an AI experiment without thinking about where's that customer data is going, who has the access, or how secure it is? You're not alone. Most PMs aren't trained in privacy or security, including me. And when you add AI into the mix, the stakes only get higher. That's why today we are breaking it down. No legal jargon, no security scare tactics, just what every PM needs to know to build products that are innovative, safe, and trustworthy. So let's get into it. So, very first section is why privacy, security, and AI matter. Your users are trusting you with their personal data, emails, location, financials, sometimes even health information. As a product manager, you may not write the code, but you are responsible for deciding how the data is collected, stored, and used. Now add AI into the picture. If your product is using machine learning, that means the decision about what the data is collected and how it's trained directly impacts the bias, fairness, and the user trust. Here's a stat for you. More than 80% of users say they'll switch platforms if they feel their data isn't safe. And when companies like Equifax, Facebook, and Uber make the headlines, it's not for their cool new features, it's for the data breaches and the privacy violations. So, yeah, privacy isn't just a legal checkbox, it's a product decision, a business differentiator, and in the age of AI, it's also a question of ethics. So, what exactly is your job as a PM when it comes to privacy, security, and AI? Here is the short version. You are the gatekeeper of what data gets collected and why. You help shape the user experience around permissions, consent, and transparency. You influence tech decisions about storage, encryption, and access. You coordinate with legal, security, and compliance, ideally before the last minute. And with AI, you also influence data governance, deciding how data is anonymized, if it's used for training, and whether the outputs are explainable to the users. Think of yourself as a translator between ethics, law, UX, engineering, and now you have guessed it right, AI research. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a data scientist, but you need to ask the right questions. So, here are the 9 questions I believe every PM should ask before launching any new feature or AI driven product. First question: what data are we collecting? Second, do we really need this data? Third, have we informed the user clearly? 4. Can the user opt out, delete, or edit their data easily? Fifth, where is the data stored? Sixth, who has access to it internally? Seventh, what happens if this data leaks tomorrow. Eighth, are we compliant with regulations like GDPR or CCPA? 9. Are we using the customer data to train the AI models? If you're not asking this, you are flying blind, my friend. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the laws. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, wait, I'm about to get a law lecture, relax. I'm not going to bury into a legal jargon, but as a PMs, we do need to know the highlights because these rules directly impact the features we design and ship. So here's a quick crash course, I would say. Number one, GDPR, which is for Europe. If your product has users in EU, GDPR applies. Even if your company isn't based there, it's all about the user consent. Users should be able to say yes or no to the data collection and change their mind later. They also get right to be forgotten, meaning they can ask you to delete all their data and they have the right for the data portability, taking their data from your app to another. Ignore these rules and fines can hit up to 4% of your global revenue. That's not a pocket change. Number two, CCPA. That's for California. Think of this as California's version of GDPR, but it's a bit lighter. Users have the right to know what you have been collecting and why. They can say, don't sell my data. It's about transparency and opting out rights. If your product has users in US, this definitely matters. Number three, India's DPDP Act 2023. India now has its own strong privacy law, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. And this one is interesting because India is one of the largest digital markets in the world. DPDP Act puts serious obligations on companies about how they handle the user data. If you're operating in or targeting India, you can't afford to ignore this one. The consequences are real high. Number four, the EU AI Act, which is brand new and it's established in 2024. This one is the world's first big framework for AI. It doesn't treat all AI equally. Instead, it sorts AI into categories of risk, like minimal risk, limited risk, and high risk. And if your AI product is in the high risk category, think hiring, credit scoring, healthcare, you're going to face strict rules around testing, documentation, explainability, and bias. So if your team is exploring AI features, this is not optional homework anymore. So here is the bottom line. You don't need to become a lawyer. You don't need to memorize sections and subsections. But you do need to flag risks early. Don't wait till the end of the sprint to ask, oh, wait, are we compliant? Loop in your legal and compliance team. They are not the enemy, they are your allies in building responsibly. And most importantly, avoid those last minute, not compliant surprises that delay launches, frustrate engineers, and make you look like you weren't paying attention. Here's a myth I want to bust right now. Security is not just engineering job. Yes, engineers write the code, they manage the servers, and they handle all the firewalls. But as PM, you actually shape the product's attack surface, the places where the data could be exposed, stolen, or abused. Let me give you a few examples. First is authentication flow. Think about Zoom in 2020, where Zoom bombing becoming a thing because default security was weak. They had to scramble to roll out waiting rooms and then password protections. That wasn't just an engineering miss, it was a product design decision. APIs. Remember Facebook's Cambridge Analytica data scandal? That happened because APIs gave partners way more access than they should have. Billions of data points walk right out of the door. As PM, we decide how much data our APIs expose. Permissions. One of the reason Equifax breach was so bad is because too many people had internal access and logs weren't monitored. Over granting permissions like giving everyone a master key, eventually someone misuses it. Third party integrations. Slack learned this the hard way when tokens stored in GitHub repos were exposed, opening up vulnerabilities. Every time you add a third party vendor, you are expanding your risk. Are you checking what they do with your data? So now add AI into this picture. AI brings in new categories of risks. Prompt injection in chatbots. People have already tricked ChatGPTs into revealing the hidden instructions or sensitive data. Model poisoning. Imagine someone's feeding corrupt data into your training set. Suddenly, your AI starts giving biased or even harmful outputs. Sensitive data leaks. Samsung famously had a case where employees pasted internal source code into ChatGPT and it leaked outside. That's not a bug, that's a process flaw. So here's the shift I want you to have. Don't just ask what could go right with these features, ask what's the worst case misuse of this AI feature. And don't forget, while these AI threats are shiny and new, the number one attack in the world is still phishing. Twitter's 2020 hack, where the accounts like Elon Musk, Barack Obama, and Apple got hijacked, started with a simple phishing attack on internal employees with few fake logins and boom, chaos. That's where security is also a culture. Train your teams, talk about it, make it part of onboarding. Because if you don't, security becomes your weakest link. And as PM, you own part of that responsibility. All right, enough doom and gloom. Let's flip to the positive. What does privacy first product thinking actually looks like? Look at Apple. It turned app tracking transparency into a feature. They ran ads saying privacy, that's iPhone. That's brilliant product marketing built on compliance. Signal and Proton Mail made encryption their entire brand promise. They don't even want to see your data. That's trust baked into the business model. Instagram added screenshots warning in vanish mode. Small detail, but it shows respect for the user intent. Those micro moments add up. And in the AI space, ChatGPT and Google Bard, now Gemini, introduced toggles that let users decide if their chats get used in the training. That's transparency. And it sets the tone for how the trust in AI tools is built. The lessons here: don't treat privacy like homework, treat it like a feature. Okay, so how do you make this part of your day to day PM practice? Here is something which I would recommend: include privacy and security into your definition of done. Don't ship until you have stress tested it. Zoom learned this hard way when their defaults weren't secure. Add data impact section in PRDs. Facebook Cambridge Analytica fiasco is a reminder: if you don't track why you are collecting data, someone else will misuse it. Talk to InfoSec and Legal monthly, not just in crisis. Think of it like playing down the compliance debt. Run tabletop breach drills. Some of the best companies literally role play data breach. Okay, Slack's token leak. What's our plan? That's a muscle memory matters. Treat privacy as part of UX. Remember, when deleting an Uber account used to take multiple hidden steps, that killed the trust. Today, users expect it front and center. Add AI data impact to PRDs. Document if AI is using data for training, inference, or neither. Be explicit. That's how ChatGPT avoided bigger backlash by adding training toggles, bias, and fairness checks. In 2018, Amazon had to scrap an internal AI recruiting tool because it learned to discriminate against women. That wasn't intentional, it was a data bias issue. As PMs, we need to test for this. Do this consistently, and privacy and security stop being panic projects. They become part of your product DNA. So, privacy is not a compliance thing. Security is not a backend code. AI is not just a shiny feature. They are all product choices. And every choice you make, what data you collect, how you store it, who can see it, and how AI uses it, tells your users what kind of company you are. Be the PM who earns trust. Be the PM who builds responsibly. And be the PM who asks what could go wrong before something else does. If this episode got you thinking, share it with your team, your designer, your backend dev, maybe even your legal representative. Because making privacy, security, and AI ethics part of everyday product conversations, that's how we raise the bar. Hit follow, drop a rating, and tell me on LinkedIn what's the biggest privacy or AI challenges you are facing right now. This is Product Bakar. I am Rishi. Until next time, build bold, build safe, and keep that fire alive. Thank you. See you next week.